Well, what that essentially means is this right here. We'll look at some examples. So say you're looking at bedroom comparables. What do you type in the search box to be able to compare, find certain comparables for your property, right? Well, if you think about plus one, minus one. So if our property that we're going out, our friend said, come list my property or come give me a listing presentation and help me guide me towards a price. If that subject property has 4 bedrooms, then we're going to want to go on one side of 4 and the other side of 4. So 3 to 5, right? You could go exactly the number of bedrooms, exactly the number of bath in your search criteria, but you're probably going to find that bracketing helps a little bit. And then if you needed to still drill down further, then you can come back and go specific on that number. I would recommend starting here. So subject property has 4, you'll say 3-5. You'll put exactly what that says in there, and that will find every 3, 4, and 5 bedroom property. Then we're going to look at bathrooms, same thing. We're going to do, if it has 2 full baths, it might say 2.5, whatever. Just bracket that full bath number, 1 to 3. Acreage, a little bit trickier. The recommendation would be to start, if your subject property has half an acre, go 1/4 an acre to 3/4 of an acre, up to 1 if you need to, just depending on the results. All of the results you see on Matrix are real time. So everything you plug in here, you'll see. All right, I started out with 40 comparables. As you put this information in, it's going to drop to 30, then 20, and then 10, 15, wherever, somewhere in there. Year built, same thing, bracket. If it was built in 2005, you might put a bracket on there from 2000 to 2010. So 5 years roughly on there. Again, you'll have these slides at the end of class for your reference if you need it. For the subdivision neighborhood, again, we want to stay in that neighborhood unless there are 2 homes in the neighborhood and you just can't stay in there because the other home never sold. So we'll look at that map in a second. So if no neighborhood, again, that's where our baseline comes in. As tight of a distance as possible, 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile, 1 mile. And then the kind of wild card there is if you needed to go out further than that, stay within the elementary school boundaries for that subject. So that subject's in Roswell North Elementary School, then search for your comparables in Roswell North Elementary School if you had to get further and further out because of the comps, you just weren't finding enough comps, right? You'll stay in the elementary school because it's a tighter window, and then the high school, right? The high school is typically bigger area and the elementary school is a little bit tighter. And kind of that's if you had to get there. For the basement, you can say has basement, does not have basement. I wouldn't get so specific if your subject property has an unfinished basement that you wouldn't also look for any home with a basement, right? Some people may say, well, ours is unfinished. Let's look for only unfinished basements. You probably just want to search for, when you go in your matrix, you can make multiple selections, finished, unfinished, partial. You may just want to select all of those in your initial search if you're doing the basement comparison. Obviously, if it doesn't have a basement, your subject, try to search for not basement. That's a difficult one to comp out if there are other comps there, that do or don't have a basement. So make sure that criteria happens for you. And again, if no results, you can remove those criteria. But take a look at this pyramid here, because really this is a good visual of how we want to start. The top of the pyramid is obviously smaller, and so we want to start with the smallest amount of comps possible. That's why we drill down on this MLS search results, because if we have 5, then they should be 5 really good comparables for our property. If we have 1, then it's probably going to be the best comparable, but then we're going to need to go down to that second level of a pyramid and open it up a little bit more. So, you may start in that one, you may start with distance, right? So you maybe you had to do 1/4 mile, you might go out to 1/2 mile. Now let's keep all the other criteria the same, but go out a little further, right? And you might use that as your button to go further and further out. If you had to go, then you can go acreage, because you really want to think about what an appraiser is going to be able to adjust for, because we can price the property for $1 million. But if the appraiser says it's worth 400,000 based on all the comparables right beside it, that's what it's going to appraise for, right? And so really we always have to kind of keep that in the back of our mind, is we're not only doing this just for market purposes and what the seller wants, but we want to also try to prep them for that appraisal.